right, welcome, folks. Good to see you here. Hope to see some more of you fine folks. Well, let's just say that race could have been more boring. It was okay, but the writing was on the wall come lap 40. So, those of you just joining us, I'm pretty sure there will be some spoilers here. But we have Max Verstappen with a victory. Very much getting the victory here. But by about 5 seconds. Yeah, so the interval is like 5 seconds. And then we had Alonso getting a podium. Way. We have George, Sainz, Hamilton, Leclerc, Gasly, Ocon, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Stroll, Bottas, Albon, Hulkenberg, Zhou, Norris, De Vries, Piastri, and the local boy, Logan Sargent, in last. He qualified last, and he finished last. Oh dear, I feel really bad for that kid. I feel really bad for him. I really do. But yeah, so I see Supersonic in the chat. I see people here. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you all here. So to be quite apt, let's get to welcome. So welcome, one and all. So good to see you here. But all right, so here for another episode of Max Verstappen post-race podcast. Well, it was certainly a lot to be desired. Let's just say that. I find it really fascinating, actually. I look at my statistics on my videos, like the view counts. They drop like a stone when the race starts, and you can tell how many people are switching out when they start coming back up again. Like I think it was about like halfway there, and then it was just starting to go back up again. You could tell what was going on here. It's like people were thinking it was going to be romping away. Racing, okay, K-Mag points, not boy. He also let Gasly by, so he kind of screwed himself. Well, no, K-Mag did get a point. He did get a point, so there's no mean call from Gene. Gunther Steiner's not going to have to deal with that call. Alonso, winner of the non-Red Bull category. Thanks, Nerd King, for the support, by the way. Solid 7 out of 10. Ratings, anyone else? I'd probably give this race like maybe 5. No, that's harsh. Maybe 6. I would say 6. J Smooth, opinions on NASCAR as an F1 fan? It's not really my thing. I've not really followed it too much, but I've got to respect the bravery of NASCAR drivers. You know, it gets really tight in there. It looks scary. Not gonna lie. So it's something very, very impressive. Yeah, I respect their talent, let's just say. It's just not really, it's never really been on TV. No, Baku was a slog. Baku was a slog for sure. Miami was better. I feel like they conducted themselves well with the Miami Grand Prix better this year. They certainly seemed a little bit more focused, and they were using their facilities a lot better. So I feel like, okay, this felt a little bit less contrived. Still contrived, but, you know, well, yeah, it was better. Let's just say it's an improvement. 30 minutes of boredom. I mean, yeah, no, it's better than Baku. But it was just, you kind of saw the writing on the wall, ultimately. It just felt like it was going to be... It was inevitable that we were going to be getting, like, some kind of element there. So, we were going to definitely get some problematic things there. So, yeah. Let's talk about the race. Let's talk about the race itself, the Miami Grand Prix. As we were talking about, it was a race. It certainly was all right. It had some decent overtakes, to be sure. Hang on, just making sure that I haven't got anything muted. Yeah, there were some decent overtakes. There were a lot more overtakes than there were than Baku. Certainly a lot more. And I did like Leclerc and K-Mag having a nice little bit of a scrap. That was a lot of fun. But other than that, it just seemed decent, let's just say. But there was certainly I'm just gutted from McLaren, man. I don't know what they're gonna do. Like, I think their next batch of upgrades are not until Hungary. They're gonna have to speed those upgrades up pronto to get anywhere. Also, Alonso being, where's Lance? Oh, turn 1, there he is. Oh yeah, because I think he could see on the massive screens in like turn 11 where he was where Lance was. But yeah, I'm going to be getting into the winners and losers in a bit. But let's just say it's certainly Lance is not pulling out as much as Alonso can. Definitely not nearly as much. S in the chat for Logie Bear. Oh dear. I mean, I'll talk about him more in a sec, but Logan, I don't know what you're doing, man. It just seems like I've been giving him the benefit of the doubt. You know, he's a rookie, but really, he was troubling nobody. I mean, De Vries had a really bit of a stinker, but at least he was battling Piastri. Sargent, though, I mean, okay, it's his rookie season, but maybe the pressure just got to him or something like that. This was his home race, and it just wasn't enough. I hope he turns it around by Silverstone. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll improve, but he's just got to really pull it together. He's just got to start learning. Alex has really got to, like, show him the ropes, but it's certainly very iffy, let's just say. It's not a good look, let's just say. So we got to see the bump at the beginning was detrimental to him. Oh yeah, it was. It didn't help. De Vries and Norris, that was bad. Pleased to see an accident-free race, even if it might not be conducive to excitement. I mean, the one thing you can say, as at least, you know, the F1 cars these days are a lot more reliable, and a lot of the drivers, they are not, they're not accident prone. Sure, you get accidents, you get tussles, you get stuff like that. But even with Checo and Max, they were being very cautious. They were very cautious as to what was going on, what was going down, and ultimately, they didn't crash into each other. It looked like they would, but they were being very, very nervous about it. So you could definitely tell that they probably got instructions, do not hit each other. They don't want what happened with Rosberg and Hamilton to happen to them. Okay, just got done watching I Need to Cope. No, don't worry, Nate. It's okay. It's all good. It's all right. But yeah. Nate, I don't know about Logan. I mean, Logan, I think he does have what it takes, but at the same time, F2's roster is looking very, very strong. So he should be paying attention. I mean, the Miami Grand Prix, it certainly had its moments. It was doing okay. It was solid. It was a solid performance. They've certainly improved the infrastructure and the presentation. Having said that, though, that driver presentation was cringy as all hell. I remember the last time they did that. That was in Austin, 2017. That was better. Because tell me in the chat. If you were being bigged up by the guy who goes, "Oh, let's get ready to rumble," you know, you get that, and then you get like confetti cannons and like cheerleaders and music that's like guitar, power ballads. That's much better. That's so much better. That's like you go, yeah, way to go. You don't get like soft. You don't get like soft orchestral music with then the Miami thing. The Miami aesthetic requires 80s synth and 80s style. There was a mismatch. There was a mismatch in the presentation, folks. Who saw that, by the way? There was some water in there, to be fair, Nate. And especially after they had a downpour overnight, so there were puddles on the cardboard. So there was some water, at least, to be had. I mean, but then I realized something, because Ted Kravitz was talking about why those boats are there. Those boats are there to be sold. It's basically a super yacht showroom. So you can basically just see what you want to buy in terms of a boat. And it's on fake water to go, this is what a boat looks like in water. Yeah? That's the thing you're going to be putting it on. Yeah? Whilst you're forking out $2.3 million or something like that. That's besides the point. Alright. This year they had over 30 more people than the past year. But at the same time, though, it looked deader to me. It didn't look as full. You know what I mean? It just felt very sparse. Especially when Ted was doing his like quali thing. There weren't really people hanging out there. It looked very empty. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And Verstappen checked out after he overtook Checo. Oh boy. Every driver should walk out to the theme of Miami Vice, right? Yeah? We need some 80s vibes. You know, it needs to be like Flock of Seagulls, I Ran. You know, I walk and I ran. Yeah, that would be epic. Yeah, chat. Pick an 80s synth song that you would walk out to. I'd be very interested to know. Valtteri, I take back what I said about Valtteri's stash. I mean, hey, it works. He's happy. But I'll talk about Bottas. Or maybe I might not. You know what? I was going to put him in the loser category, but you know what? I'm gonna go easy on him this time around. He's better. Back in black. Oh, I'd have Shoot to Thrill. Shoot to Thrill. You know, that's that would be like, that's a good one. Crazy Train, good one. By the way, Randall, there's actually a guy called DJ Cummerbund, and he did a remix of September and Crazy Train. Go and look it up after the stream. Obviously, it is actually really good. Living Daylights, good. Shook Me All Night, good. White Wedding, nice day for a white wedding. Gilles, McLaren form. Oh, I'm going to be talking about that more in a second, but I'll give you the cliff notes if you're in a hurry. God awful. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just need to rub my eyes here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Is this 2015 all over again? I'm sorry. 2015? Did 2015 call or something? Yeah. Just McLaren, man. I don't know what's going on here. I really don't. This is just only existed for lap one. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what was going on with Piastri. I couldn't really see what was going on down there, but yeah. But yeah, Supersonic, Sainz getting 5 seconds, called it as soon as I saw it. Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. Usually, when pit lane infringement is noted, more often than not, it's gonna be called out because they have numbers, they have statistics in which to tell you, yeah, you done goofed, son. You dag dong goddamn did it now, son. All that stuff. But yeah, needs to post some RB talent stat. Well, to be fair, they're getting David Sanchez, who's in charge of the aerodynamics at Ferrari. And one of the strong things about the Ferrari were the aerodynamics, the downforce. Yeah, the aero. That Ferrari are pretty good at that. They're pretty good at that. So I think that'll be a nice bit of an advantage there. YY Racing Edge of 17. Good choice. Good choice. But yeah, Shoot the Thrill for me or Flock of Seagulls. Akbar, you said you had a funny story about the Flock of Seagulls. Fire away. Yeah, hit me with your best shot since we're doing 80s ballads. Since we're doing that, we may as well like keep the theme going. What are your thoughts on Albon? To me, it seems like he's been overachieving in the Williams, but a bit overlooked. I think he's had a good season. I'm really happy for him. He feels like I think he's now got a good rhythm going. It's his team now. He can just stay there for the rest of his career, and I'm pretty sure that Williams would be more than happy to have him. I mean, he could stay there for another 2 seasons, 3, 4, 5, whatever he wants. He's in the driving seat, no pun intended, about what his destiny will be. And I think that's what you really need as a Red Bull refugee. Stability. A lot of it, which you don't get. But then again, I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening. You know what? Depending on how well he does in F3, Sebastian Montoya, oh, he'd be fiery. Having JPM back in the paddock, seeing out Sebastian Montoya, that'd be fun. Wonder why Perez didn't pit for fastest lap. He was 20 seconds ahead of Nando. Well, according to the radio, Perez was just asking his team, is Max struggling? Like he was just waiting for Max to make a mistake or having problems with the mediums or something. And they were saying, no, he's just managing it in sector 1. It's like, oh, okay. Also, I think if there had been a safety car, which everyone I think was really banking on, I think ultimately it wouldn't have gone down as well as they would have hoped. I think not really what they were expecting. But all right, so oh, that's true for any team in any racing series on it. Stability and consistent good equipment. That's why for our Aston Martin, I believe now, I think they've just hit 100 points. Let me just check the constructors' standings, because I'm not quite sure what the standings are. What's the standings say? Come on, what's the standings say? Aston Martin, 102 points. Boom. They achieved 100 points. First time they've done that, I think, in a long time. Certainly the first time was Aston Martin, because they've only been around for 3 seasons, but 100 points in the first 5 races. Go team. Nice job. Nice job there, indeed. Right. So what we're going to do now, folks, is doing a nice little behind-the-scenes recording session. So I'm going to be recording for the winners and losers section on this channel, because I've got a lot of stuff to do tomorrow, so I'm going to record it right now. So you're going to get to see a live recording of my winners and losers section of a video that will go out tomorrow. So obviously you'll have the stream archive here, but you'll also have, you know, a separate video, just in case you aren't available to check out the stream, or if it takes a while to upload. So get ready. I'm going to be giving myself a little bit of an intro, get myself ready to go. Press record. So I will be do put down your questions and your feedback. I will be answering them afterwards, so don't worry, I will be paying attention, and we'll go back through the chat and go through your queries or what you'd like to talk about, your feedback. Racing Parody, I actually had a funny comment on one of the videos saying, yo, Mattia Bonotto called, he wants his hairline back, and I just immediately just went like, pronto, spinala. So basically I just did a spinala in the chat, so it's like, ha, showed him. Showed him. Right. So I'm just recording now, so let's get moving. So the Miami GP turned out to be a little bit better than we had expected. Ultimately, it turned out to be much more of an improvement than we had expected. Unless you're talking about the driver presentation, which to me is nothing compared to the 2017 one with Austin. The guy who goes, let's get ready to rumble! I want that guy. And also 80 synth or heavy rock, not orchestral stuff with Miami background. There was a complete mismatch there. But let's start to talk about the actual race itself before we get into the winners. Okay, no, I'm actually going to start that again. I'm going to start that again, folks, because I feel like that we could do better with that intro. Okay. There we go. Let's get things rolling. The 2023 Miami Grand Prix. Who were the winners and who were the losers? Well, first of all, the loser I'm just gonna start immediately off and say, no, start that again. Oh, Nate, goodbye. I'm gonna stop that recording for now. Start again. You're seeing me behind the scenes, folks. I want to get a really good intro for this one. I really do. What was that driver presentation? Oh my goodness. I'm going to give an absolutely premature loser winning category. I'm going to give a premature I'm going to give a premature loser nomination to the driver presentation. A complete and utter mismatch. To me, I want the guy from 2017 Austin, let's get ready to rumble! And then some heavy rock, and then some cheerleaders and confetti cannons. That would be awesome. Not just some really awkward-looking orchestral stuff and a Miami background and then just a cardboard cutout building thing. Blah. No, it wasn't that good. But apart from that, the Miami Grand Prix was a lot better than it was last year. It seemed a little bit more genuine. The surface actually stayed put where it was supposed to be. But we'll talk more about that later. But right now, we need to talk about who were the winners and who were the losers. Okay? So first off, we're going to get to the winners. And ultimately, despite the fact that Checo did not win the Grand Prix, I am going to list him as a winner here. He was on it from the beginning and really keen to make sure that Max did not give him an easy ride. No. And was very determined to make sure that Max did not have an easy time of it. Ultimately, he did lose out in the end, and he tried his best to hang on to Max toward the actual final laps. In I just still feel that Perez was really on it and he didn't give up so easily. And it was really strange too that he wasn't getting a lot of feedback on the radio, whereas Max was, but I don't feel there's any conspiracy towards that. According to Christian Horner, he was saying that Checo knew what he had to do, so there was no point bombarding him with information. He was in the lead, and obviously if you're in the lead of a Grand Prix, you wouldn't want to be bamboozled with loads of facts and figures when you need to be. Just drive the car. But the fact is, though, the Checo of 2021, when he joined Red Bull, was just grateful to be in Formula 1 still. 2022, he was finding his feet. But now, though, we see Checo in his third season at Red Bull, knowing what to do, what is expected of him, and he's not going to give Max an easy ride. This is going to be an interesting title challenge, folks. This is something that is going to be something that we remember for a while. But this is only the 5th race, folks. There's still plenty to go here. And speaking of Max Verstappen, he's another winner. That goes without saying. He started in 9th place, according to the statisticians. By statisticians, I mean David Croft. That this is only the 4th time we've seen anyone in the history of Formula 1 come from 9th position on the grid to win a Grand Prix. That is a major achievement, and Max Verstappen did it, and it was not necessarily a cakewalk. He could have easily had it taken away from him. There were times where Checo, despite having harder tyres, was able to kind of bridge down that There were moments that Checo was able to bring that gap down to the point where there were 5 seconds between he and Max, and ultimately it could have been down to the wire, and we might have seen a lot more ding-dong challenges. But this is like a joint win thing for them. They were able to have a couple of moments where they were challenging each other, and they didn't hit each other. So they definitely learnt from Rosberg and Hamilton there. But that could easily change as the season goes on. But for now, they're keeping it clean. Again, for now. Then I'm going to give a shout out to Alpine as a winner, because even though they ultimately didn't get the 6th place that they wanted, Gasly falling off toward the end, they got a double points finish, and that is a win in their book. After all of the struggles they've had throughout the beginning of the season, especially in Australia, and then all the stuff at Baku with unreliability, to get a double points finish and showing some decent performance, and Gasly really hanging in there, trying to get a decent position, really sort of competing with Sainz and George Russell for a while, that's something to take heart about, and really something to have, something to cling on to. A little bit of hope that things can improve, and that Alpine can at least secure P5 in the Constructors, because McLaren certainly aren't going to, but I'll talk about more of them later. I'm really going to talk about that. Oh dear. But yeah, Alpine, kudos to them. Not bad. Ocon's long strategy paid off this time around. He was in P3 for a while. It did fall down to P9, but at least he scored some points this time, unlike in Baku where he completely fell off. Okay. Now, Alonso. I've got to talk about Alonso, of course. In quali, P2 on used soft tyres. That is quite good for an Aston Martin car, which is really, really draggy and a very long back straight. That is something to really just hype up. This is a really good car, and Alonso is on it. But then again, this does feel like Alonso's really kind of tailored himself to this car, and the car's coming to him instead of his teammate. But then again, he is having some cheeky moments where he's actually checking out Lance on the big screen. That was a really wholesome moment. I think if he had brand new tyres, he could have actually given Checo a scare. And if he really timed it right, could have been on pole. But that's woulda, coulda, shouldas. In terms of the race himself, he was being very measured, very sensible. He wasn't fighting the Red Bulls. He was picking his fights with Carlos Sainz. And then when Carlos got that penalty for speeding in the pit lane and really hammering on the brakes and missing it all out and stuff, he just knew what to do. Alonso didn't have to push so much. He was really worried that those tyres were going to grain and fall off a cliff. But then when that happened, he was like, okay, I can push back, calm down, and then I can do what I need to do. No one's going to challenge me. And ultimately, no one did. George was getting kind of close to Alonso, but ultimately, he was in control. He knows what to do. Alonso is a really good strategist. He's keeping an eye on what everyone else is doing. And that's exactly what happened with Carlos. They most likely told him that, oh, Carlos got a 5-second penalty. We can ease up a little bit. Let's just try and lock in third place. And that's all he needs to do. And now Aston Martin has 100 points in the Constructors. More often than not going to be securing at least P4 in the Constructors, especially this year. They've got 4th place in the bag, I reckon. And they're going to be having upgrades soon. Who knows? There could be P3 locked in. Now, Miami itself, in terms of the overall infrastructure, as I said earlier, it's definitely an improvement. Sure, the cardboard cutout water's there, and all of those unoccupied boats are there, but hey, at least it's some sort of real estate going thing here. But hey, at least it's some sort of boat real estate going on. There's transactions, but let's just get one thing straight. Miami is a corporate event put on by Liberty Media and Formula One to make money. It's really not a fan-driven event. Even though there were plenty of fans there, it was a record turnout from last year, but it also felt a little bit quiet as well. It was really strange. It was like an allocation, all different places. Just really surreal. But then again, the track was a lot more stable than last year. It wasn't breaking apart. They're using the same materials from Jeddah, which in of itself was quite stable. And everything just seemed a little bit more well put together. I mean, to be fair, we didn't have any safety cars. No one broke down, which is a testament of itself. I'd call that a winner as well in terms of reliability. Not so much for excitement there, though. I just think that this was a much better put together Miami Grand Prix, especially with the use of the actual Hard Rock Stadium as the paddock. That was a definitely genius move. Now, okay, Kevin Magnussen. K-Mag with Leclerc. That was such a fun battle. It was one of the few fun, consistent battles that we had. K-Mag really punching above his weight there. And even though he qualified P4, which was fantastic in of itself, he fell back to P10, he did get a point. I feel like Haas definitely deserved a point. They were really hanging in there, and Hulkenberg all over the shop, and really sort of demonstrating that that Haas car is not a good race car. And Hulkenberg's also really good at quali, so it's sort of amplified. But K-Mag, though, hung in there. He was tenacious, he's fired up, and the Viking managed to pillage a point. And okay, one last mention for the winners. Jackie Stewart. This guy's 83. So Martin Brundle on his grid wanted to talk to Roger Federer, and they were behind a barrier. And yeah, he came up to Jackie Stewart and was saying, oh, I really want to talk to Roger Federer. Oh, you know, and then Jackie, he just went under the barrier, went up to some massive bodyguards, said, excuse me, excuse me, my friend wants to talk to it. It's just this little guy, 83, with his Rolex cap, his tartan cap and Rolex things. It just, wow. And then George came in with the assist, and they managed to get Roger Federer in. Fantastic. It was so cool. Just Jackie Stewart not caring about these big burly bodyguards and ultimately getting Martin Brundle an interview. And I will say, Martin's grid work was a lot less cringy this time around. He sort of actually was poking fun of itself, which in of itself was a big win. Okay, so that was the winners bit. But yes, of course, there are losers. Okay, I'm just going to get this out of the way. McLaren, what is going on? What is going on with you? You are overhyping yourselves. This is why in my predictions video, I said that you are more likely going to be the flop of the event. For the fact that you've been overhyping your upgrades, and then now there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Lando Norris hasn't got a clue. Oscar's not got a clue. Poor Oscar. I'm sorry. I am a very big McLaren fan, and I really want to see them do well. But I really need to see their work ethic and how they treat upgrades, and this as being the Lord and Savior of their season. Where is this? It's just an absolute... It's vaporware. This is what it's all about. This is just crazy. Yeah, it's very funny since they're sponsored by Velo and Views. That's a lot of vapor. So are these performance upgrades. But this is not going to be... The next major upgrade that McLaren's going to have is like most likely at Hungary. That's another 2 months. I mean, they're really going to have to speed things up because McLaren, this is as bad as like 2015. They're nowhere. They're really lucky that they managed to get some points and everyone else is just floundering around with Alfa Romeo and Alfa Tauri also not really getting that many points. P6. I'm going to call it right now. At the moment, McLaren's in P6. This is just galling for me to say. Oh dear. Okay. Well, I talked about Alpha. Zhou Guanyu. Zhou Guanyu, he did have some really promising moments earlier on in the season, and he has scored more points than Valtteri, but really he was just quite anonymous, and this was really amplified as well with Bottas, who I was going to make him a winner, but it wasn't quite enough. He didn't actually get any points, but he was able to show some performance and sort of nearly get himself in there. but then he did fall back a little bit. So he was sort of everywhere and nowhere in a way. But Bottas did enough and actually did stuff to manage to push him away from the loser category. But Zhou had to take his place because one of the Alphas definitely have to be there. Because that Alpha car, it's just anonymous. It's absolutely anonymous in my opinion. Then we got to have Charles Leclerc. My goodness. I mean, it goes without saying what happened in qualifying with him spinning around. Well, I say spinning around. He span around twice. He did a little spin, stopped a little bit, and then he just did a little mini pirouette and bang! In the pit, and boom! In the wall. It was really, really strange. It was a really strange accident, that's for sure. But realistically, Charles Leclerc is making a lot of mistakes, folks. And if he keeps doing it, then he actually might end up having more crashes than Mick Schumacher had in his season. I mean, the thing is, though, is that Martin Brundle was talking about in 2018 that he thinks that Martin Brundle said in 2018 he couldn't wait to see Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari. He just needs to stop making these mistakes when he's on the ragged edge. 5 years later, he's still making those mistakes. Is Charles Leclerc champion material? He could be if he calms down. But at the same time, it's up to Ferrari to give him a car where he doesn't have to be on the ragged edge, where there is some movement and you could do 90% and still be one of the fastest cars on the grid. Absolutely. But right now, Leclerc is just, I don't know, it just seems really strange. Now, next, Logan Sargent. I'm sorry, this is just even more galling for the fact that his hometown is only 18 miles away. This was the American event for the American driver. And now he's going to have 2 other events where he's absolutely nowhere. Even Logan doesn't really know what's going on. He didn't think that he was that bad. He got told he was P20 and he didn't believe it at first. He thought he was a little bit further. He thought he made it out of Q1. Ultimately not. Granted, it was very bunched up in Q1. I think there was only 1.2 seconds between first and last. Or second and last even. But even then, Logan wasn't really aware of what he was doing. So therefore, there's some sort of blind spot when it comes to his overall performance. And that ain't a good thing. Realistically, though, it is his rookie season. He is in one of the slower cars, so it's a little bit more tricky to get a good read on what you're doing. But I think his honeymoon phase is slowly coming to an end. And by Silverstone, he's probably going to get a little bit more criticism hurled his way, especially at like Williams' home race. Not to mention for the fact the F2 roster this year is really strong. He's got to be looking over his shoulder. Then, Lance Stroll. What's up with this guy? I'm going to keep it short because he was okay. He managed to pull up some positions. He almost got back into the points. But just when you compare him to Fernando, it just seems really strange that he's not able to capitalize and utilize the strengths that Aston Martin car has, whereas Fernando can. Yes, Fernando is a 2-time world champion, and he's in the prime of his life right now for the 3rd time. But Lance has been there through thick and thin, that team. He should know that team inside and out. It just seems really odd. Just definitely strange thing. Okay, De Vries, I'll keep this short. He almost had a clean race, but then punting into the back of Lando, that wasn't a good look. And that sort of nullified his race, really. So he's just making more and more mistakes. I'm getting to the point where Helmut Marko's going to run out of patience, and he's probably going to kick Nick De Vries out after 2023. And it's going to be Ayumu Iwasa or Liam Lawson, perhaps, who's going to be getting that second seat. But who knows? Michael Andretti apparently is getting his application ready for 2025. Maybe there could be a buyout of AlphaTauri. Becomes Andretti. Who knows? It's all speculation. And lastly, we've got Lewis Hamilton. Barely there. Yes, Lewis did get back up in the points, but this is a 7-time world champion, and he's really not confident. He's very jittery. He's very anxious. But he did manage to pull off some really good... Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to cut that bit. Because I think that's a little bit unfair, folks. Yeah, he did okay. He was all right. He just about squeaks it. So... But all of this kind of pales into what you could easily expect from the... So even though these were the winners and losers of this race, if you weren't quite sure what the events were in Baku, do check out this video here about how I discuss all of that nonsense. There you go. You got yourself a recording. That's how you record a video. You do have some mistakes, you do have some flubs, but there you go. So let's go back through the chat, shall we? So thank you very much for your patience. This was a nice little bit of behind the scenes work. So let's go through. So I'm just going to check the chat. Okay, so where were we at? Last second safety car would have been tricky. Yeah, indeed. Then we'd have had... Oh, Supersonic, you didn't see the presentation. Oh, lucky you. You'll find it on the internet. It's almost as cringy as the Saudi Arabian orchestral band not doing their national anthem very badly, like an amateur dramatic society. Well, not amateur, yeah, amateur musicians. It was definitely cringeworthy. Certainly very cringeworthy. So you saved yourself some absolute farces. It was not a good look at all. So let's just make sure I recorded that file. Yay! There we go. So I'm just gonna move it there. Boom! Recorded the video. That'll make it easier for tomorrow. Okay, Aston Martin's having a blast of a season so far. Happy seeing a backmarker last year team having so much success. Yeah, they absolutely got it. Alonso's form is unbelievable. I wonder how much further they can develop the car. Well, they have actually not had any upgrades or anything that we can see. So they're going to have a major upgrade coming soon, especially since they're going to use their ATR tokens from being 7th last year. So they're going to come alive. They've still not had any upgrades, and they're still the second fastest car. That's quite telling. Ferrari's performance, yeah, ultimately in qualifying they're okay, but when it comes to the overall race, they just fall apart. They have tire degradation, and yeah. I was going to say that Carlos would have been a winner, in that he was more stable. But then ultimately he did have that lock-up, which ultimately led to that 5-second penalty. That was a silly mistake, realistically. Ferrari, they've just not really had a good season so far. They do have the car. They just really need to get back in there. Okay. Oscar having a similar situation to Van Dorn. Really talented, but getting one of the worst possible. Yeah, exactly. Same goes for Nick De Vries, actually. Nick De Vries is in the wrong car. It's the same. Nick De Vries is having Stoffel syndrome. Nick De Vries has won Formula E. He's won Formula 2. He's got all these credentials. On paper, he's a very good race car driver, but he's in the worst car, and he's under the control of Helmut Marko, who has got Red Bull Junior drivers at the door. And the only reason Nick De Vries got in there is because there was no realistic candidate for the AlphaTauri drive that particular season. There will be next year, especially with the Wasa. So, 2 Japanese drivers. I think Tsunoda's done enough to actually keep his seat. He's done enough. He's definitely done enough, I think. I feel the rookies are getting punished year after year with the amount of testing that keeps getting taken away. Yeah, absolutely. I really do feel that you've got to perform right from the get-go unless you're at Williams. And if you're in AlphaTauri, you get 2 seasons if you're lucky. 1 if you're really fouling it up. It's just that there's a lot of pressure. Roman, man on fire, Grosjean is racing in Indy for Andretti. Yeah, no, he's racing for that team. He's doing okay, but I think he could do better. You know, I think Ocon is a loser, but him and Gasly is a mighty lineup. Well, I don't think Ocon was a loser this time around. Collectively, Alpine did enough to be able to be a winner. The fact they even scored, so that's a small victory for them. No one's going to stop Red Bull. Wouldn't be surprised if they get all the victories this year. Yeah, probably. Unless there's some mechanical issues. Or they will have nowhere near as many developments over the course of the season. So I think by the time you get to the midpoint, I think Aston will catch up and maybe give them a fright. Alonso could easily give Checo some troubles. I think we'll get some Aston P2s coming on later in the season for sure. Okay. So, right, Lion, you just got home from work. What have I missed? We've just been talking. We've just been talking about the race. Just giving some debriefs. I recorded the video. Don't worry, this will be on playback, so you'll be able to look back at what's been going down. You don't see Aston progressing that much. Oh, I think they will, because they've got some Red Bull bods in there. They're definitely going to improve. This is just the beginning. I feel like they have got stuff cooking, because Alonso's excited. He knows what's in the pipeline. And Alonso, at the moment, he's got a terrible poker face. Terrible poker face indeed. But yeah, I definitely think they are going to solidify themselves as the second fastest team. And yeah, this might then lead to them falling back a little bit next year, but for now, they've got to make hay while the sun shines, extra prize money and all that stuff. But alright, so I think that's enough to say for a little bit of a chat. It's good to see you all here. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and look forward to seeing the winner and losers video tomorrow. And hope you all have a good rest of the evening, and take care of yourselves, folks. Bye-bye.